This stuff requires discipline, and it requires dedication, and it requires skill building, and it's not always fun. And sometimes it's boring, sometimes it's frustrating, sometimes it's exciting in a good way when the market gets some capital growth or rents go up. That's always good. When you pay off a property, it does happen, and it is awesome when you get to do it. You know, all of those things can be exciting about property investing, but there's also, particularly in the early days in your acquisitions phase, there can be some challenging times that you need to learn to navigate. And so if we're going to navigate this stuff, then we need to set ourselves up for success.
You're listening to Property Investor Tales, stories from the front yard.
Hello and welcome to Property Investor Tales, stories from the front yard, where I get to speak to property investors from around Australia about their investing journey. My name's Tabitha Bright, and I'm the head of the advising team here at Positive Real Estate, where we help people build wealth through property. With over 8,000 clients across Australia and New Zealand, there are some incredible stories to tell, which hopefully make your time and investing journey that little bit easier and will inspire you along the way. So today I've deviated a little bit from our normal format, and I've waxed a little bit lyrical about one of the major challenges that I see for property investors as they start their journey of building a portfolio. So I hope you get something from today's session, and next fortnight we'll be back to our normal routine of interviewing another investor for you. So enjoy this conversation. Take care for now. Bye. Hi everyone, and welcome to Property Investor Tales, Stories from the Front Yard, the podcast that I largely host, but the team will also jump in with some stories from time to time. And the point of this is to really gather stories from all our investors. It's always nice to, be part of a community and understand what's normal, what's not normal. Sometimes when we're investing, particularly if we don't have a lot of community around us that are investors, it can feel like we're the only ones struggling in this space and everyone else is getting results and we've got these issues. And it can be a lonely road, like anything in life, when you're doing something outside the norm. My name's Tabitha Bright. I'm the head of the advising team here at Positive Real Estate. I've been with Positive Real Estate for well over 16 years now. I'm 55 years old. I've invested since my 20s. And so I feel like, having coached goodness knows how many clients over the years, but well into the thousands, that I've got a pretty good handle on what's normal and what's abnormal when it comes to investing. Like, where are the challenges for people? And so today, rather than invite a client along with a story, I just wanted to touch on some of the things once again that I see that really hold people back. And we've talked about it recently. I've got my nice chamomile tea here. We've talked about things like mindset and the stories that you tell yourself, and what you can do to ensure your success. And there's a couple of things that just keep cropping up again and again and again and again. And so sometimes when we're learning new skills, being told something once just doesn't suffice, or being coached through something or being taught something. And so today I wanted to cover some old ground, but maybe with a little bit of a twist on it. I want to share some stuff about the defects process, because what I'm seeing that makes a massive difference as to somebody's success is, of course, their mindset. And I want to give you an example of this. So where do you go when there is a challenge? And I've had all sorts of coaches over the years. I've got, I always have a coach in some part of my life. And I'm very careful about who I employ as a coach. I do a lot of research. And at the moment, I've got a running coach. And while that might not sound like, it's much about mindset, it's always all about mindset. And I won't wax on too much about running, but running does give me a lot of lessons. And I think it's like any kind of sports. because I'm a massive advocate of people having a sport, and it came later to me in life. I'd not really been a very sporty kid, and I've only really discovered the value of team sports and team community, and what sport and striving does for you physically, mentally, the lessons it teaches you, the camaraderie, the leadership lessons, and all of that kind of stuff. So most of you, I'm sure, will have had these lessons a lot earlier than I had them. But I'm a big advocate of sport because it teaches us so much. And then when it comes to investing, it's kind of similar. Investing can be a solo pursuit in that it's your goal, it's your property portfolio, it's your financial position that determines how fast you can move and, how quickly you acquire a portfolio if you're building a portfolio as opposed to buying one investment. But it's also not a solo pursuit, because you have to work with so many different people. And we used to do, and I want to roll it out again, a fabulous exercise with clients. And when we did a lot more live events, which we're coming back to, so for those of you that like live events, they are on the itinerary to roll out a whole lot more next year. So that's very exciting, a lot more live mentoring and property summits and all sorts of good stuff. And one of the things we used to do was we'd get people to sit down in groups at their tables and have one person as the spokesperson, and they had to write out how many people they think are involved in a property purchase. And, we have solicitors, we have, property managers, we have the banks. But when you start to actually think and you start to actually list the number of people, because not only is there your solicitor, there's the vendors, there's the vendor solicitor, there's the bank's solicitors and legal teams. There's, if it's not DocuSign like it often is these days with contracts, you might have Australia Post involved. There are so many different components to who deals with your purchase, let alone the running of your portfolio, from accountants to, once again, property managers, your PM team. All of that stuff is critical to your success. So if you haven't learned skills over time about working with people and managing people to get a great result out of people, you come to the party less skilled to work with the challenges that a portfolio will throw you. And we often talk about passive income from property. And I know Jason and I often snort at this because neither of us have ever had a passive portfolio. There's always something like, I had a tap that needed fixing for a tenant the other day. And, there's always something. And yes, the property manager dealt with it. It was up in New South Wales, so I physically couldn't have done it even if I wanted to. But there is always something that you are required to do. It's never about sitting back and not having to do your paperwork or have a bookkeeper or meet with your accountant or refinance something that needs refinancing because you can get a better result or whatever it is. Property investing is not passive. I love it because it's a vehicle that I can see, touch, feel, and control. And, I know a lot of people love other investment vehicles, everything from crypto to shares, and there's nothing wrong with having diversity. But I love property as a safe plan. And when you look at the world's wealthy, a lot of them, whether they made their wealth in business, whether they made their wealth somewhere else, they often hold it in property. And so if we're going to be holding a portfolio, we have to have skills of working with people. And this is where I keep coming back to something that gets bandied around a lot, which is your EQ, your emotional intelligence. And I know for myself I put a lot of stuff in place for myself to be successful. And what I mean by that, and I learned from some of the best of the best. So one of the people that used to coach me is a fellow called Scott Harris, and he is basically Anthony Robbins, who is a big success coach. He's his go-to. Yeah, so I'm name dropping Scott. And so if Anthony Robbins cannot for some reason present, or he can't present the whole thing, I think Anthony Robbins had some stuff around his voice, which he's very open about. Then Scott gets called on to present. And so to be at that level, Scott has had to learn a lot of skills around being successful. And so I was fortunate enough to tap into Scott as a coach at an earlier part of my career and find out what success looked like. And a big part of this was calendaring and scheduling for success. And when we have a property portfolio, there's a very big reason that only 0.0069% of the population end up with 5 or more properties. And that's because this stuff requires discipline, and it requires dedication, and it requires skill building, and it's not always fun. And sometimes it's boring, sometimes it's frustrating, sometimes it's exciting in a good way when the market gets some capital growth or rents go up. That's always good. When you pay off a property, it does happen, and it is awesome when you get to do it. You know, all of those things can be exciting about property investing, but there's also, particularly in the early days in your acquisitions phase, there can be some challenging times that you need to learn to navigate. And so if we're going to navigate this stuff, then we need to set ourselves up for success. So I certainly didn't invent this, modeling success, but I have heard it and endeavoured to do it to the best of my ability and my resources. And so one of those things was with Scott. I managed to get some one-on-one coaching with him, and he taught me a lot around coaching people, and he taught me a lot about emotional intelligence. And he taught me a lot about the choices that we make daily. And I wanted to share some of that with you today, because one of the areas that I see clients self-sabotage is around our expectations when we go to settle a property. And if we've bought an off the plan, or we've bought a new property, which a lot of our clients are encouraged to do, the reason for this is that most of our clients are needing to pay down bad debt, they need a strategy for paying off their family home. And an easy way to do this is to maximize your tax deductions. And in order to maximize your tax deductions, it makes sense to buy new property because we get the maximum tax deductions. And so if you're on a decent income, if you've got 4 or 5 properties behind you, you might be paying close to zero tax, and you might be saving yourself 30, 40. I remember getting a tax return from the ATO and getting a $40,000 check, and I was like, because I was entitled to get a lot of tax back because of all the legal deductions. And that was exciting because I used it to pay down some debt, and I used it towards a buffer because I needed a buffer at that time for making sure my property portfolio was safe. So if I had any unexpected expenses, I had that cash reserve there. But you might also use it towards a deposit. You might use it towards anything. So getting back your tax deductions is really, really important. And so a lot of our clients buy new. So then when you buy new, there's a process which we call our defects process, because it is incredibly unusual to settle a brand new property. Even when you renovate, those of you that have renovated, you'd know this. there is a defect process. You have to go through, and if it's a renovation that you've done on your family home or something, you go through and you mark up all the bits and pieces that need to be fixed and changed and rectified for handover. And there's a common misconception that this needs to be done before settlement, and that isn't accurate. So the builders generally get 90 days post-settlement to rectify any defects. And sometimes to us, what feels disappointing when, there might be scuff marks or paint done poorly or cracked tiles or, it could be anything from a cupboard not shutting properly to some bigger defects that need sorting. The builder does have a time frame in which they're allowed to complete that by. And unfortunately, for our expectations, that doesn't have to be done before you settle. And as much as we make sure that we cover, expectations for clients around the process, there's a lot of information for clients, particularly when people are buying for the first time. So to absorb every detail is a big ask. And so if people don't understand this, or they're frustrated, or they want it done, or they think it should be done, it's that should that comes into our language. Because we might have high expectations or high standards for ourselves, and we expect that to be rolled out for everybody. It can really get in the way of your experience and your success investing. And I always remember there's a saying of mine. Well, it's not of mine. It's a saying that I like, that I use a lot, so I think of it as mine. And it's around being right. And in an ideal world, when we go to settle, we'd want everything absolutely tickety-boo. No issues, no cracked tiles, no sloppy paint, nothing that needed fixing. We should be delivered an absolutely beautiful, polished product, particularly if we're paying well for it. And I concur, like in a perfect world, that would be amazing. When you're dealing with a big developer that has a lot of stuff to deliver all on time, there are going to be some things that need to be resolved afterwards. And are you right in wanting a perfect, smooth process? 100%. And then I think of the saying, you're standing on a sidewalk and it's busy traffic. It's all going like flat chat crazy, busy traffic. And the cross light for you turns green, and it does that digga 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 digga, whatever the noise is that it makes here in Melbourne. And the traffic's not stopping, but you've got the cross light. So you step out and you get hit by a car and you get killed. But you were right. And I say this to people because sometimes it's not about being right. Absolutely, you can express your frustration at the fact that there are defects that have to be fixed. 100%, no issue. However, we still have to work through the challenge. And when you get frustrated and you tell yourself a story and you allow this to become defining for you, and this is the difference between a client that is going to succeed and build a portfolio and a client that will buy one property and then go, that was a crap experience and I don't want to do that again. And I knew property investing was crap. My neighbors told me, my parents said, why are you doing this? And we start falling back into these old patterns. So you have to be really conscious of your thought process. And so I have processes for myself. And one of the things that Jason used to always say was, are you choosing when you step into that elevator where you've got to sort something, are you going to press the button to the basement and go down there and have your paddy? Or are you going to press the penthouse and work through a challenge in a deliberate way with good communication? And the clients that learn the skills to work through the challenge, because there are always going to be challenges, are the clients that I see being successful. And they're also the clients I see that tap into their coach on a regular basis, that tap into the mentoring workshops. And so I just want to encourage everybody. It's not going to be an awfully long podcast today, but I'm seeing this a little bit more at the moment where there's some settlements coming up for clients, and there's some frustration around a normal part of the process, which is the defect process. And when we throw our toys around it, and I say that with love and respect, but when we're frustrated and we go straight to anger, because anger is an emotion that gives us certainty. So it makes us feel in control, it makes us feel righteous, and it makes us feel solid and certain. So for a lot of people, going to anger is a way of managing their uncertainty and fear. And so if we understand this about ourselves, when we feel that urge to fly off the handle, we need to take a breather and we need to put steps in place. And my hubby used to always say to me, second response tab, like, you've got to choose your second response. So your first response might be blah, but choose your second response. Because I don't know about you guys, but the times that I do step into that righteous space where I go, a little bit off my handle, and we're all human, we all do it, myself included. I think my worst one was telling my neighbour to bite me. That wasn't my proudest moment. So, when we've stepped into a space that we're not being really deliberate and conscious, then afterwards you get that kind of bitter regret. And that's when I always know that I've not served myself well, is when I get that regret feeling. And I've now become practiced at listening to myself and where I go, and I can now feel it and know it in the moment when I'm beginning to go into that righteous space. And I know it because it actually feels so good. And so I'm like, how can something that feels so good be wrong? Wrong's a strong word, but not serving me. Because when you go into that righteous, angry space, you don't necessarily get the best result for yourself because other people shut down. And so get really good at explaining what your frustration is, explaining what your expectation was, explaining why you're disappointed or what the problem is, or what, explain it in detail to the person on the other end. Now, that person's either going to be skilled at hearing that and allowing you to give that feedback, or they may not be. And this is where the challenge comes up. Because if they're not skilled at that stuff, then you may get more frustrated. Because I think we've all had those moments where we've gone, hey, I'm not happy about this. And here's the reasons why. This was my expectation. This is what I was told. And this is what I believe should have happened. Help me out here. And someone's either cut you off when you're halfway through explaining it, or they've said that blatantly that was never what was said when you know for sure it was, or they've come up with every excuse under the sun, or just said, oh, just basically suck it up. And we've all had those experiences, and then we're more prone to going back into this, down the basement, not up the basement. But I encourage you to learn those skills, to keep talking through it, because your success at navigating challenging situations is going to determine your success with your investing. And while we all enjoy a great financial result from investing, I think the biggest thing I've actually got from investing outside of financial security is the fact that it changes who you become. And it gives you a totally different skill set because you learn to manage yourself. You learn to deal with discomfort. You learn to deal with uncertainty. You learn a whole new skill set about working with people, about getting the best out of people, about, what works, what doesn't work. And it's that, my friends, it is actually the most valuable thing in my books around investing, is that it is who you become. And so I just wanted to touch on that today. And I apologize if I've deviated from our normal stories with clients, but I just thought it was worthwhile mentioning some of the other stuff that I do to ensure my success, because I know that for many of you, you are tired and you are stretched and you're going above the norm of what people do. You don't get to necessarily put your feet up when you come home. You're probably, you might be dealing with everything from family to, I don't know, long hours at work. You might not have a 9-to-5 job. You might have other commitments. You might have all sorts of other stuff on your plate, and you're trying to build your business, which is your property portfolio. And I understand that it's, resources can be spread pretty thin, especially our emotional resources. So there's some key things that I talk to the coaches about to help them with success as well, because they're often building their own portfolios still and coaching and, right? So we've all got these incredibly busy lives. So you have to choose what you prioritize. Be deliberate, guys, because it's really easy to be part of somebody else's plan rather than part of your own plan. So I'm really deliberate. Every week on a Sunday, I plan out what I'm going to get from the week. And sometimes it goes sideways, something will come up and I have to reassess and readdress, and that's life. But I plan. I'm a massive planner, and I never used to be. And the idea of planning used to really annoy me because I wanted to be spontaneous. But what people don't realize is that you do get to be spontaneous when you plan, because then you do actually have the freedom, because you buy your freedom with your planning. And by planning, I mean, I plan everything. I plan my running. I plan my work week. I plan when I'm going on holiday. I plan everything. And I know that sounds a bit A-type personality, kind of weird. But if you talk to anybody, whether it's Jason, Sam, Shay, myself, and then, go up to that next echelon of your Tony Robbins or your, and I'm just using him as an example because it's coming to mind, people that have created serious wealth for themselves, CEOs of major companies, they are all planned within an inch of their lives. And that may make you feel uncomfortable. It might not sit well with you to think of yourself as being that planned, but there is freedom in planning. And it also means that you're using your time effectively. And it means that you can put time aside where you do nothing. You can put time aside. You might put a whole day aside. Sundays are my day where, other than a bit of planning, I have my long run with my friends at the trail running club. And I have Sunday afternoon to do whatever the hell I want. But I've planned that and I've blocked that in. And I get that guilt-free, because on Saturday, I've done all this other stuff that I have to do. And my work week's been planned. And I shut my laptop and I turn my phone off for certain times and hours, because I have to recharge in order to create the life that I want to for success. And I know that there are people that are working all hours of the day, then they have family commitments and so much other stuff going on. I still encourage you to plan. And remember, what you're experiencing now is not forever. And so start building some skills with micro adjustments, because as Scott used to say to me, the change is not actually in the big decisions we make. The changes that you will have in your life that are impactful and meaningful are often just 1% changes layered on top of each other. And when you start doing these small things daily for yourself, massive change is the result of that over a period of time. And I come back to one of my favorite sayings, which I'm going to leave you with today, which is the results that you are chasing is in the work that you're not doing. And so I always try to be really honest with myself and with anyone who's coaching me about the work I'm not doing. And for me, that shows up with, like, I'm not eating as well as I should be at the moment, and I'm very conscious of that. I'm not doing the strength training I need to at 55. I need to make sure I've got strong bones and I'm not losing muscle mass, especially for my sports. And I'm not doing that at the moment. But I'm deliberately giving myself a 4-week reprieve on the back of a big year with a whole lot of stuff for me. So I've done it in conjunction with my coach. I've planned it, and I'm enjoying the freedom of just playing with my running, eating whatever I feel like, and having that freedom. And then I'll go back to a more structured thing. So I'm sharing this because it's really important for your success. Because then when you have the time to do the things that you need to do, even if it's just in micro moments, even if it's just quarter-hour blocks that you get to breathe and walk around the block, then it sets you up for your ability to manage your emotions, which sets you up for success for your career, your investing, and so forth. When things don't match expectations, when you're having a challenge, express that. And if it's not something that you're used to doing and it feels awkward and you're shy about giving feedback, reframe it. I always say, listen, guys, this is going to be an awkward conversation for me to have. I'm feeling uncomfortable having it, but I need to get this off my chest. So I might not be very graceful how I express this, but this is what I would like to share. And so I always pre-frame it if it's something new, a new skill I'm practicing, so that people know and they give you that little bit of grace. So I'll leave you with that today, folks. I hope that was helpful. I just wanted to flag it because what goes on up here is going to directly impact your success at your investing. And I'm happy to chat about it further if anybody would want to. I think most of you guys, my clients, our clients at Positive Real Estate, have our contact details. You can reach out to us in the Facebook group for our positive mentoring clients. Otherwise, if you're not a client of Positive Real Estate, you are more than welcome to ask questions in Positive PPI, Positive Passionate Property Investors is the Facebook page for our non-clients if they want to talk anything investing. All righty, that's it from me. All the best and happy, successful investing. And we'll be back to our normal style of podcast next fortnight. Take care. Bye for now. Hey, thanks for listening to Property Investor Tales. Remember to subscribe so you get notified every time a new episode drops. As you can guess, I love hearing people's property investor tales. So if you'd like to share yours, then please get in touch with me via email at propertyinvestortales@positivementor.com.au. We would also love your feedback, and I would appreciate a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Remember, you can watch all of these podcasts over on YouTube at Positive Mentor or at positivementor.com.au. Until then, take care, happy investing, and bye for now.